the role-based security inside of Ignition goes all the way down to the component level. And to demonstrate this, we can take a couple of different buttons. So I'm going to go to my buttons component palette and grab a few of these multi-state buttons. Grab a couple of them here. Now for each one of these buttons, what we can do is set up security on them differently. Right, so in order to get our security panel, I'm going to right click on one of the buttons and go to the security option. And when you select that, you can see it says security settings now down in the lower left corner. And if you notice, there's even two tabs there, so you can go back and forth between properties and security. And if you want to, you can pop the security panel out just like everything else in the designer. Now we have this inherit permissions checkbox, which means it'll just use the permissions of whatever container the component is in. Now I don't want to do that. I want to set up security independently on it, so I'll uncheck that. And now you can see we have our administrator role. Now actually, I've added more roles, so there should be both administrator and operator, but it's not showing up here because the designer was opened before I added those roles. So if I right click on the role section, then you can see there's a refresh button, and if I click that, now I have administrator and operator. All right, so for this first button, I'm going to say that the administrator role is required, and if you don't have the administrator role, then these restrictions are in place. Now disable and disable events, I'll leave those. Disable events is going to disable the scripting events for that particular button, and disable means that it's going to set the enabled property to false when the window opens up. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my security panel here. I'll change my second button to also not inherit permissions. I'll say administrator and operator. And now with both of these checked, it means either administrator or operator role will get you access to this button. But otherwise, we're going to have an access denied overlay. On the third one here, I'm going to say operator is required. Otherwise, I'm going to hide the button. And the hide is going to act the same way as the disable does, but it will affect the visible property of the component. All right, so I'll go back to our security here. And then on the fourth one, I'll have it be inherit permissions because I want to have a control. All right, so now that I've got that, I can save it and open up a client here. And once I'm logged in with my admin user, you can see that all four of these are available because the admin user has both administrator and operator. But I can use this little switch user window to switch out to guest. And now you can see that the first one has been disabled, the second one has our access denied overlay, the third one is now invisible, and the fourth one, our control one, is still normal. Now if we go back into the designer, we can take a look at some other security inside here. Now these are individual buttons, but I can select multiple of them and have the security permissions overridden for multiple at the same time. And you can see these boxes, which means some of them has this and some of them doesn't. I can click on the root container here, or any container inside Ignition, and then you can see that my restrictions change. So now I can either disable the events in the container or I can hide it. And even one more, I can go up to my main window 1 here in my project browser, and I can say that this window is restricted to not open unless you have those particular permissions. All right, so you can do permissions from the gateway to the project to the window to the container and all the way down into the buttons themselves.